Have you reached the point where your body feels heavy, your mind feels foggy, and even simple tasks feel like climbing a mountain? Where you wake up already tired, where your soul feels worn, where every part of you whispers the same thing: I can't keep fighting like this. Most people think exhaustion is just physical, but chosen ones know better. The kind of exhaustion you're feeling isn't from lack of sleep. It's from spiritual pressure, emotional battles, silent warfare, and carrying weight that nobody sees but God. If you've been feeling drained for no clear reason, if your motivation disappeared, if your spirit feels numb, disconnected, or overstretched, this isn't weakness, this isn't failure, this isn't burnout, this is a sign that heaven has been shifting things around you faster than your body can process. A sign that your spirit is fighting battles your mind doesn't have language for yet. A sign that God is preparing to redirect you, reposition you, or remove you from something that has been draining your strength for far too long. But here's the part most chosen ones never realize. When a breakthrough is close, exhaustion comes first. When God is about to close a chapter, heaviness appears. When your next assignment is forming, your old strength dies out, so new strength can rise. Your tiredness is not the end, it's the transition. And if you're watching this, if you clicked on this specific message at this specific moment, it's because something in your spirit already knew this word is for you. So before we go deeper, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. What exactly am I carrying that God never asked me to? Hold that thought. Because the real reason you feel exhausted is not what you think. And once you understand it, everything inside you will shift. Let's begin. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when exhaustion becomes something deeper than fatigue. It becomes a language, a signal, a spiritual indicator that you have reached the point where your body, mind, and spirit can no longer pretend to be fine. And for many who are watching this right now, that moment might be this one. You didn't stumble on this message because you were bored. You didn't click because the title sounded interesting. You clicked because something inside you whispered, "This is me, this is exactly where I am." And that whisper was right. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that only chosen ones understand. It's not the simple tiredness that comes after a long day. It's not the fatigue that disappears after a weekend of rest. It's deeper, heavier, more spiritual than physical. It lingers in your bones, in your thoughts, in your emotions, in the way you breathe. Some days it feels like your soul is carrying a weight your body was never built for. And the strangest part, you often can't point to a single reason why you feel that way. You didn't run a marathon, you didn't stay up all night, you didn't do anything unusual. And yet, you feel like you've been fighting a war you can't remember entering. This is the exhaustion we are talking about today. The exhaustion that hits chosen ones right before a major spiritual shift. The kind that shows up when something in your life is no longer aligned with your purpose, but you've been forcing yourself to push through anyway. And if you're honest, you've been feeling it for a while. You wake up tired, you carry emotions you can't explain. Your spirit feels overstretched, your thoughts feel heavy, your motivation feels distant, almost unreachable. Even the things you used to love feel dimmer. Even the goals you once chased feel strangely disconnected. Even the people you once poured into now feel draining instead of energizing. But here's the truth you've never been told. Chosen ones don't get tired because they're weak. They get tired because they're warriors who rarely stop fighting. You have fought battles silently. You have carried burdens privately. You have endured storms that others will never know about. You have been the strong one in rooms where no one ever asked if you were okay. And somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself that holding everything together was your responsibility. That if you stopped for a moment, everything around you would fall apart. Chosen ones carry a lot, sometimes too much. And that's why your exhaustion is not a flaw. It's evidence of how much you've survived. But there is something deeper happening beneath this fatigue. Most people get tired because of physical stress. Chosen ones get tired because of spiritual transitions. You feel drained right now because you are not in the same chapter, spiritually, that you are in physically. God has already moved your spirit into a new season, but your mind and body are still trying to survive the old one. This creates a spiritual disconnection that chosen ones feel as exhaustion, a heaviness with no obvious cause, a sense of misalignment that shows up as emotional overload. This is why even rest does not feel like rest, why sleep doesn't fix anything, why taking a break doesn't bring you back to yourself. Because the exhaustion isn't physical, it's spiritual. And spiritual exhaustion requires spiritual realignment. Your body is tired because your spirit is shifting, and here is where it becomes even more important. Chosen ones experience warfare not just before breakthrough, but before redirection. Because redirection is more dangerous to the enemy than breakthrough. Breakthrough increases your strength, but redirection changes your path, your purpose, your impact, your territory. And that is why the exhaustion you're feeling is so heavy. Your spirit is transitioning into a new direction, and every part of you that still belongs to the old season is fighting to hold on. Your mind wants to understand what's happening, your heart wants stability, your emotions want clarity, but your spirit is already moving forward, and that tug of war feels like fatigue. But here's the part that most chosen ones don't realize. This exhaustion is not a sign that you're falling apart. It is a sign that you are being rebuilt. When God redirects you, He drains the energy of the old season so that you will not return to it. He allows the things that once energized you to feel empty. He allows the relationships that once comforted you to feel heavy. He allows the goals you once pursued to feel meaningless. It is His way of saying, you have outgrown this. It is time to move. It is time to release. It is time to obey the pull, even if you don't yet see where it leads. Exhaustion becomes a divine boundary, a signal that says, not here, not anymore. But this exhaustion also reveals something else. You are carrying things that were never meant to stay with you in the next season. Some of you are exhausted because God is removing people from your path, but you are still trying to hold on to them. Some of you are drained because you have stayed too long in a place where your spirit stopped belonging months ago. Some of you are tired because you are fighting battles that are not yours to fight. Some of you are worn down because you have been giving strength to things that were supposed to be released. And some of you are exhausted because you are standing at the edge of a chapter God already closed, praying for it to come back to life. Your exhaustion is telling you the truth your mind is afraid to acknowledge. Something in your life is over. Something in your life is shifting. Something in your life is waiting for your yes. This is why God let you reach the point where even your strength is tired. Because sometimes a chosen one will not move until they have nothing left to hold on to. And this is where your story becomes powerful. Because exhaustion is not the final stage. It is the doorway to revelation, the doorway to clarity, the doorway to alignment, the doorway to the version of you that is finally ready to live the life God has been preparing behind the scenes. You are not at your end, you are at your turning point. The exhaustion you feel is not the collapse of your spirit. It is the collapse of everything that was blocking your next assignment. But there is something even deeper behind your fatigue, something that begins to show itself when you stop running, stop pretending, stop forcing, and finally allow yourself to feel what your spirit has been trying to reveal. Because the real reason you feel exhausted, the real reason your energy has collapsed, the real reason you feel disconnected from your own strength, is not just spiritual transition. It is something more painful, more honest, more revealing. And once you understand this next part, everything inside you will shift again. Let's go deeper. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey when the exhaustion stops being a feeling and becomes a mirror. a mirror that reflects what you didn't want to see, what you tried to ignore, what you kept pushing down because you didn't have time, space, or permission to collapse. And this mirror is where the real spiritual work begins. Because exhaustion does not appear just because you are tired. It appears because something inside you is unresolved. Something still aching, something still unspoken, something still unhealed, something still carrying weight from a season you never had time to process. Most chosen ones move through life in survival mode for years without even realizing it. You've been the one others depended on. You were the strong friend, the resilient one, the reliable one, the one who endured the blow and showed up again the next morning as if nothing happened. But strength without rest becomes numbness, and numbness without healing becomes exhaustion, and exhaustion without reflection becomes collapse. The exhaustion you feel is not simply from fighting battles, it is from fighting battles alone. No guidance, no emotional support, no spiritual mentor, no space to fall apart, no one who truly understands the weight you carry. And here is the truth. Chosen ones grow tired not because they lack strength, but because they carry strength for too long without being poured into. You were not created to hold everything. You were not designed to be everyone's safe place while having none of your own. Your exhaustion is revealing where you've been forced to be strong for too long. And that is why God allows you to feel it. Not to punish you, not to overwhelm you, but to interrupt you. Because if He didn't let the exhaustion catch up to you, you would never stop long enough to see what has been hurting you. You would continue pushing yourself beyond human limits, carrying the emotional and spiritual weight of every person and every situation you've encountered. And slowly, without noticing, you would lose yourself. This is where many chosen ones find themselves when the exhaustion hits hardest. They no longer recognize who they became in the battle. They no longer remember what peace feels like. They no longer understand what normal rest looks like. They no longer know how to stop fighting. Their identity becomes wrapped in survival, and survival becomes the only language they know. But exhaustion forces a question you've avoided. If I'm always fighting, when do I actually get to live? This is the question that begins the unraveling, not the unraveling of your life, but the unraveling of everything that has been suffocating it. Because exhaustion is not a sign that you've done too little. It is a sign that you've done too much in the wrong environments, with the wrong people, for the wrong reasons, carrying weight that was never assigned to you. And for many chosen ones, the deepest source of exhaustion is this: you have been functioning outside of your calling, not because you're rebellious, not because you're disobedient, but because life pulled you into survival mode, obligations, trauma responses, guilt, emotional entanglements, and expectations that forced you to operate from a place God never intended. And when a chosen one lives outside their calling, their spirit begins to slowly shut down. You lose joy, you lose clarity, you lose fire, you lose passion, you lose identity, you lose connection with your own purpose. And at some point, you wake up tired, even after 8 hours of sleep. Because it wasn't your body that was exhausted, it was your spirit. A spirit that has been whispering, nudging, pushing you to step into alignment and waiting for you to listen. God uses exhaustion to draw you back to yourself, to make you question what you're holding, to help you see what no longer belongs, to separate you from the things draining your life, to reset your vision for the path ahead. Your tiredness is not random, it is directional. But here's another truth. Exhaustion often hides something even more painful: disappointment. The disappointment of giving so much and receiving so little. The disappointment of hoping again and being let down. The disappointment of carrying others who never carried you back. The disappointment of praying for strength when what you needed was relief. The disappointment of trusting situations God was trying to pull you away from. The disappointment of fighting for seasons that were already over. Chosen ones don't burn out from lack of purpose. They burn out from misplaced loyalty, and exhaustion becomes the wake-up call your spirit sends when your heart is still clinging to something God has already released. So if you feel tired, understand this: you are not weak. You are not failing. You are not lazy. You are not losing momentum. You are being repositioned. Your spirit is shedding what no longer fits. Your heart is releasing what has been draining. Your mind is detoxing from environments that wounded you. Your body is refusing to carry battles that were never yours. Your soul is returning to alignment. But this transformation comes with resistance. Parts of your identity that survived in past seasons do not want to die. Parts of you built in trauma are terrified of surrender. Parts of you that learned to fight everything do not know how to rest. This is why you feel torn. This is why your strength feels inconsistent. This is why some days you feel fine and others you collapse emotionally. You are not breaking down, you are breaking free. And before a chosen one breaks free, they always experience a period of deep internal silence, a pause, a stillness, a sense that you cannot go backward, but you also cannot move forward yet. This silent exhaustion is not an ending, it is an incubation. God slows you, God quiets you, God empties you, God isolates you, God drains your old strength, God strips old identities, God removes old desires, God stops old cycles, not to weaken you, but to prepare you, because what is coming next requires a healed, rested, realigned version of you, not the wounded version who learned to survive. But there is one more layer to this exhaustion, something deeper than emotional fatigue, deeper than spiritual transition, deeper than internal conflict. It is the part most chosen ones never talk about. Because behind all the battles, behind all the strength, behind all the resilience, there is a truth that almost feels too vulnerable to say out loud. You are exhausted because you have been fighting alone. And the moment you understand what that really means, the moment you face the real cost of walking alone for so long, everything inside you will shift again. Because the next revelation is the one that finally breaks the exhaustion at its core. There is a specific kind of exhaustion the chosen ones experience, one that goes beyond the physical and emotional. It's the exhaustion of walking alone. Not simply being alone, but walking alone, carrying responsibilities, battles, spiritual weight, emotional burdens and silent struggles with no one to lean on. This is the exhaustion that breaks something inside of you. Because humans can be tired. Warriors can be tired, even prophets can be tired, but chosen ones are rarely allowed to show it. You were the one who held everything together. You were the one who smiled even when your heart was crumbling. You were the strong one, the stable one, the dependable one, the one who always pushed through. And without realizing it, you became the person others turned to, but never the person others checked on. You learned how to be everything for everyone, except for yourself. That is why your exhaustion feels different. It is not about the work you've done. It is about the weight you've carried in silence. And here is the deeper truth. Chosen ones don't break because the battle is too strong. Chosen ones break because the isolation is too heavy. Your exhaustion is not coming from the fights you've faced. It's coming from fighting them without support, without rest, without understanding, without someone to say, "Let me carry that for a moment." You were not designed to carry it all alone. That was never God's intention for you. But life forced you into roles you did not choose. The protector, the healer, the forgiver, the survivor, the strong one in every room, the person who absorbs the blow so no one else has to feel it. And every one of those identities carried a cost that collected itself over years. A cost you are feeling now in your mind, your emotions, your relationships, and your spirit. Because when a chosen one spends too long being strong, they eventually forget what rest feels like. You don't know how to put the armor down. You don't know how to let someone help. You don't know how to express your needs without feeling guilty or dramatic. You don't know how to stop fighting because fighting became the way you survived. But exhaustion is God's way of interrupting the cycle. He allows your strength to falter so that you can finally see you were never supposed to walk alone. And this leads to the most painful realization of all, the moment when you go deep enough into your exhaustion to find the truth at the bottom. You are tired because you have been giving at a level you have never received. You poured into people who never poured back. You cared deeply for those who barely noticed when you were hurting. You carried emotional burdens that were not yours to carry. You supported others during their storms, even when you were drowning in your own. You fought for people who gave up on you without hesitation. You stayed loyal to situations that were slowly draining your spirit. And now, your exhaustion is trying to tell you a truth that your heart has avoided. You cannot keep healing others by breaking yourself. For the first time in your life, your spirit is refusing to continue in patterns that destroy you quietly. This exhaustion is not weakness. It is a boundary, a divine boundary, a spiritual alarm, a message that says, no more. No more pouring into people who take without giving. No more trying to rescue those who don't want to change. No more tolerating situations that drain your peace. No more staying loyal to people who are comfortable watching you suffer. No more sacrificing your well-being for those who don't value your presence. Your exhaustion is marking the end of an old identity. But this fatigue is not only revealing who has drained you, it is revealing who you have been forced to become. For many chosen ones, this exhaustion reveals you've been strong for too long. You've been silent for too long. You've been carrying responsibility that was never assigned to you. You've been suppressing emotions that were supposed to be released. You've been surviving in spaces that could not hold your calling. You've been dimming your light to avoid intimidating others. You've been holding back your voice to avoid conflict. You've been living at half power because life demanded it. And now your exhaustion is confronting all of it. Because before God redirects a chosen one, He empties them. He strips the roles you were never meant to play. He weakens the survival mechanisms that once protected you. He exposes the parts of you that are carrying weight from old wounds. He challenges the beliefs that tell you it's selfish to rest. He removes access from people who benefited from your exhaustion. He pulls you out of environments where your strength is misused. This is not punishment. It is purification. Exhaustion precedes elevation, but there is something more, something deeper than solitude, deeper than overgiving, deeper than carrying too much. There is a final layer of exhaustion that God reveals before redirecting a chosen one's life. The exhaustion that comes not from the battles around you, but from the battles inside you. The silent war, the internal conflict. The pressure between who you were, who you became to survive, and who God is calling you to be next. This is the exhaustion that no amount of rest fixes, because it's not about rest, it's about identity. And before God redirects your life, He forces you to confront the version of you that must die so the new version can rise. Your exhaustion is the death of an old self. But to understand what God is doing inside you, to understand the inner pressure, the emotional collapse, the spiritual tension, you must face one final truth about your exhaustion, a truth that begins to reshape your entire understanding of who you are, what you've survived, and where God is leading you next. There is a moment in every chosen one's exhaustion where the outer battles stop mattering. The people who drained you fade into the background, and the busyness of life becomes strangely quiet. And in that silence, something frightening happens. Something you've avoided for years, something you've numbed with productivity, strength, sacrifice, and survival. You finally hear yourself. Not the version of you who shows up for everyone. Not the version of you who keeps it together. Not the version of you who pretends to be fine, but the real you, the wounded you, the tired you, the disappointed you. the version of you who has been buried under years of holding everything. This is the moment God waits for, because he cannot redirect a chosen one until all the false strength collapses. Not your real strength. Your real strength is divine. But the survival strength, the armor you built in childhood, the walls you built in trauma, the habits you built in pain, that is what he allows to finally crack. Your exhaustion is not the enemy. It is the doorway to honesty. And honesty is where transformation begins. Because deep beneath your tiredness, deeper than the isolation, deeper than the weight, deeper than the disappointment, there is a truth you have not yet acknowledged. A truth that explains everything you have been feeling. It is not that you are just tired of fighting. It is that you are tired of fighting yourself. This is the inner war that no one sees. The battle between who you used to be and who you are becoming. Most chosen ones live with this tension long before they understand it. You feel torn between identities, torn between old patterns and new convictions, torn between loyalty and self-preservation, torn between calling and comfort, torn between what you want and what God is demanding. And this tension doesn't express itself in words. It expresses itself in exhaustion. You are tired because your spirit is evolving, while your habits are not. You are tired because your soul is expanding, while your environment is shrinking. You are tired because your calling is awakening, while you are still living in the residue of who you used to be. No one warns you how exhausting it is to outgrow yourself, to feel the pull of who you're becoming while still wearing the identity of who you were, to feel convicted to rise when part of you wants to retreat, to feel called to speak when part of you learned to stay silent, to feel destined for more when your life feels stuck in place. It is the weight of transformation itself that is draining you. And this transformation requires something that is both terrifying and liberating. You must let the old version of you die, the version who carried too much, the version who accepted too little, the version who stayed quiet to be loved, the version who worked from fear instead of purpose, the version who didn't believe they deserved rest, the version who confused loyalty with self-neglect, the version who was strong for everyone but themselves. This version is collapsing, and that collapse feels like exhaustion. But God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is stripping away the identity that trauma built so he can restore the identity he designed. And the exhaustion you feel is the final stage before that restoration. But here is the part that chosen ones rarely understand. Your exhaustion is not only revealing what must end, it is revealing what is about to begin. Because exhaustion comes right before clarity, right before alignment, right before elevation, right before breakthrough, right before your spirit reactivates. The heaviness is the last weight to fall before you rise. And when a chosen one is this tired, this drained, this empty, God is not far away. He is near, closer than he has been in a long time. Because he knows you cannot carry another step in your own strength, so he waits for the moment when your strength ends. Because that is where his begins. This is why so many chosen ones feel the urge to isolate when they reach this stage. It isn't depression, it isn't avoidance, it isn't weakness, it is spiritual positioning. You are being separated from noise so that you can finally hear direction. You are being emptied so that you can finally receive instruction. You are being slowed so that you do not rush into the wrong future. You feel done fighting, not because you are losing, but because God is ending a battle you were never meant to fight alone. This exhaustion is the shift. This exhaustion is the transition. This exhaustion is the turning of the page. Everything you feel is evidence that your old season is expiring. And with every layer of exhaustion, a deeper truth is unveiling. You are not tired because you are weak. You are tired because your spirit is preparing for elevation. You are tired because you are walking out of misalignment. You are tired because you are breaking generational patterns. You are tired because you are healing from years of emotional labor. You are tired because your anointing is growing. You are tired because your calling is expanding. You are tired because your destiny is shifting you into place. This tiredness will not destroy you. It will define you. Because for a chosen one, exhaustion is not a signal of defeat. It is the prophecy of transformation. But now you reach the part of the journey most never talk about. The moment where exhaustion becomes sacred, the moment where God reveals the reason behind your collapse, the moment where everything begins to make sense, not in your mind, but in your spirit. The next step is where understanding enters, where revelation breaks through, where your exhaustion becomes purposeful, because there is one final truth your heart must hear, a truth that does not just explain your fatigue, but reveals the divine redirection forming around your life in this very moment. There is a moment in every season of exhaustion where something inside you shifts, not your circumstances, not your schedule, not your responsibilities. Something in your spirit begins to whisper what your mind has been too overwhelmed to consider. This is not the end of me. This is the awakening of me. Because exhaustion does not come when you are weak. It comes when you are misaligned. Every chosen one reaches a point where exhaustion is not a warning. It is a revelation that the version of you who carried everything is no longer the version God is asking to rise. A revelation that your next season will require a different kind of strength, one that does not come from survival, performance, or pretending you're fine, but from alignment, rest, clarity, and surrender. And this is what your fatigue has been trying to show you. Not that you're failing, not that you're losing, not that you're done, but that you are standing at the threshold of a divine reset. When God redirects a chosen one, He always allows the old strength to die. Not because He wants you to collapse, but because He wants you to rise with a strength that isn't built on trauma, fear, or self-sacrifice, but on calling, conviction, and identity. Your exhaustion is the cracking of the old foundation. The version of you that never rested, gone. The version of you that accepted breadcrumbs, gone. The version of you that tolerated mistreatment, gone. The version of you that lived in constant hypervigilance, gone. The version of you who confused loyalty with bondage, gone. The version of you who carried everyone else's storms, gone. The version of you who felt responsible for everything, gone. You are not losing energy. You are losing access to the version of yourself that was built to survive, not to lead. This exhaustion is not here to break you. It is here to rebirth you. Because God cannot elevate the old version of you. He can only elevate the healed, awake, aligned, spiritually aware version of you. The version He has been shaping through every battle, every disappointment, every lonely night, and yes, even through this exhaustion. And here is something no one ever tells you. When you reach the point where you are too tired to keep pretending, God finally has room to speak. This is why everything feels quiet. This is why your heart feels exposed. This is why nothing impresses you anymore. This is why your spirit is hypersensitive. This is why you feel disconnected from the things you once tolerated. This is why you are questioning everything, your habits, your relationships, your patterns, your desires. You are not falling apart. You are falling into awareness. Awareness of who you are. Awareness of who you are not. Awareness of what no longer belongs in your spirit. Awareness of what God has been whispering for months. Awareness of the misalignment that your strength once helped you ignore. Exhaustion exposes what clarity cannot, because only when your body stops cooperating does your spirit have the authority to speak loudly. This is the moment where God says, now that everything else is silent, listen. Listen to the part of you that has been longing for change. Listen to the part of you that knows you weren't meant to carry everything. Listen to the part of you that has outgrown who you had to be in order to survive. Listen to the part of you that is craving peace, boundaries, rest, authentic connection, and a life aligned with your calling, not your trauma. Your exhaustion is not God abandoning you. It is God redirecting you, redirecting your energy, redirecting your purpose, redirecting your relationships, redirecting your identity, redirecting your spirit toward what resonates with truth rather than obligation. You are entering a season where your spirit will no longer tolerate what drains you, where your intuition will no longer let you betray yourself, where your emotions will no longer hide what hurts you, where your heart will no longer settle for what dishonors it, where your soul will no longer shrink to be accepted, where your destiny will no longer wait for your healing. This exhaustion is the spiritual indicator that your next chapter is already forming. And the moment you stop fighting your tiredness, the moment you begin to surrender to the truth inside it, everything begins to realign. Because the exhaustion is not your enemy. The exhaustion is your compass. It is pointing you toward the environments where your spirit cannot breathe. It is pointing you toward the relationships that do not honor your calling. It is pointing you toward the habits that drain your gift. It is pointing you toward the spaces where your anointing is mishandled. It is pointing you toward the version of you that God is asking to rise. And once you see this, something incredible happens. You stop fighting to survive, and you start preparing to become. Because chosen ones are not designed to live in exhaustion. They are designed to live in alignment. Your spirit knows this. Your exhaustion knows this. And soon, your life will reflect this. But you must do something difficult. You must allow yourself to release what has been breaking you quietly. Release the battles that were never yours. Release the expectations that were crushing your peace. Release the people who loved your strength but never protected your heart. Release the roles you were forced into. Release the versions of yourself built out of fear, scarcity, or pain. Release the belief that you must earn rest. Because the moment you release, room is made for restoration. And restoration is coming. Not the kind that only refreshes your body. The kind that reconstructs your identity. This is not the end of your strength. It is the end of the strength you created alone, and the beginning of the strength God is giving you, a strength rooted in purpose, a strength rooted in clarity, a strength rooted in peace, a strength rooted in healing, a strength rooted in truth, because exhaustion is not a death sentence. It is the moment before resurrection. And now, as you stand in this threshold, feeling drained, emptied, undone, and unsure, heaven is closer than it has ever been. This exhaustion is your turning point, and when you rise from this, you will not rise the same. You will rise aligned. You will rise awakened. You will rise protected. You will rise clear. You will rise with an identity that matches your destiny. You are not done. You are being rebuilt. And if you need confirmation, here it is. God is not asking you to be strong right now. He is asking you to be still, because He is about to redirect your life in ways you never imagined. If this message spoke to you, if you felt seen, understood, or awakened, if something inside you shifted while listening to this, then I need you to take one step. Subscribe to Marked and Chosen. That channel exists for people exactly like you, chosen ones, who feel tired, misunderstood, spiritually sensitive, emotionally stretched, and on the edge of transformation. Every message there is crafted to guide you through awakening, healing, clarity, and purpose, to remind you who you are, to show you where God is leading you, to give you language for what your spirit has been experiencing alone. You were not meant to walk through this season without wisdom. You were not meant to fight these battles isolated. You were not meant to carry this exhaustion without revelation. Join the community. Get the clarity you've been praying for, and let your spirit rise again, because your story is not over. It is just beginning, and marked and chosen is where your next chapter starts to make sense.